All right, let's get right into it. If you're dealing with child support arrears, you've probably heard this idea floating around, this seemingly simple fix using a commercial document to just wipe the slate clean. Today, we're going to dig in and find out if that's a real solution or just a really risky mirage.
It's a question that comes from a really tough spot. People are looking for a straightforward way to handle a complex and, let's be honest, stressful financial burden. The idea that one single document could settle a huge legal obligation, well, it's pretty tempting. But does it actually work? Let's find out.
So, on the surface, you might think these are similar. They both represent a kind of debt, right? But here's the thing. They exist in two completely different legal universes. A bill of exchange, that's a private, negotiable instrument. It belongs to the world of commercial law. A child support order, though, that's a statutory duty, a legal obligation enforced by the courts, all to make sure a child is taken care of. They are absolutely not interchangeable. Okay, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. The short answer is a hard no. Using a bill of exchange to try and get rid of child support arrears is just not a valid legal move. It's a dead end, and frankly, it can get you into even deeper trouble. But, and this is important, that doesn't mean you're out of options. There is a lawful, compliant way to handle this. So why doesn't this popular hack work? Think of the child support system like its own special kind of railway. It's built on what we call statutory rails, a specific legal track designed for one single purpose. You just can't force a commercial train onto these tracks. It's not designed for it. And this lays it out perfectly. You've got two parallel tracks here. The commercial path, that's where things like a bill of exchange live. They're for business debts. Then you have the child support path, which is totally separate. It's mandated by law to run through court orders and get processed by a very specific state agency. These two tracks are designed never to cross. And the main station master on this statutory path is the State Disbursement Unit, or SDU. Every single state has one, and its job is to be the central hub for all child support payments. This is not optional, it's the law. The SDU makes sure every payment is tracked, recorded, and sent out correctly for the child's benefit. You can't just bypass it with a private piece of paper. The law has actually built in some serious protections around this whole process. Think of them as legal guardrails. First, the SDU is king. All official payments have to go through it. Second, you can't use private contracts or arbitration to change a court order. And third, while you might be able to get liquidity based on future support payments, that always needs a judge's approval, and it never ever changes the original duty to pay. So, if the bill of exchange is a dead end, where's the actual road? Well, there is a lawful what's called an executory path that gives you a verifiable and compliant way to manage these obligations. Okay, this is the real deal, the step-by-step process that actually works. First up, you verify the identities of everyone involved. Simple enough. Second, you gather up the official documents, the court order, the SDU ledger, into an evidence pack. Third, you create a notarized affidavit of arrears. Think of it as a certified snapshot of the facts. Fourth, you confirm the payment mode, which, you guessed it, always defaults to the official SDU channel. Fifth, and only if the court approves, a restricted document called a support receivable note can be created for reporting purposes. And finally, all payments are still processed by the SDU, which creates a perfect, auditable trail. And this right here is the key. The whole goal of the lawful path isn't to dodge a legal duty. It's the opposite. It's about creating a transparent, auditable record of that duty. It's about managing the obligation and, if you need to, accessing liquidity through court-approved means, all while staying firmly on the right side of the law. Now, you might have noticed a key player I mentioned in that process, the notary. But we're not talking about just any notary who stamps a document. The integrity of this entire path depends on a very specialized professional, the civil law notary. And this is a super important distinction. A common law notary, the kind you see everywhere, usually just witnesses a signature. A civil law notary, on the other hand, is a trained legal professional. Their job is to actively verify the facts, confirm who people are, and certify that the documents themselves are authentic. They are creating a high-integrity record that will hold up in court. This shows you their very specific and focused job. What they do is certify what is true, that the identities are correct, that the court order is real, that the math on the arrears is accurate. What they do not do is offer financial advice, guess at market values, or negotiate deals. They are impartial, professional gatekeepers of fact, period. This quote sums it up perfectly.
Their role is all about provable reality, not financial guesswork. They certify facts and hashes, not valuations or forecasts. They provide that solid foundation of certainty that makes the whole lawful process work. So, how is this proof made completely undeniable in the digital age? Well, through some really cool technology that supercharges the notary's work. A process like Notary Chain can take a document, create a unique digital fingerprint for it, a hash, and then lock that hash onto a blockchain. This creates a permanent, unchangeable, time-stamped record, giving you absolute proof of what that document said and when. Okay, so we've done a pretty deep dive into the legal nuts and bolts here. But what does it all mean for you? Let's break down the actual steps for everyone who's involved in the child support process.
So, what can you do? If you're a parent, the biggest thing is to steer clear of these bill of exchange schemes and just keep your official SDU records straight. If you're a legal practitioner, use compliant tools like the Affidavit of Arrears template, and always get court approval for any kind of assignment. And if you're an employer, your job is simple and clear. Verify all withholding orders and send payments only to the official SDU.
And that really brings us to the heart of the matter. The appeal of a quick fix is powerful, but it's usually just a mirage. In the world of child support, the only real remedy is proper execution backed by undeniable proof. The lawful path gives certainty and security to everyone, and most importantly, to the child. So the choice is really between a risky paper promise and a secure, provable process. Which path will you trust?
Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on those transactions that absolutely have to be right. We'll explore how a very, very old idea, the notary, is getting a massive tech upgrade to make things way more transparent and secure for everyone. So let's talk about something really critical, like a child support payment. You'd think it's straightforward, right? But nope. Behind that one payment, there's a whole web of questions. Who's actually paying? What does the court order say exactly? And when, down to the second, did that payment officially go through? Right now, that whole process is kind of a black box, and all that uncertainty, it just leads to a ton of anxiety and arguments. So the fix we're looking at here, it's all built on these 3 timeless pillars of trust. I mean, this is the stuff that's made commerce work for centuries. You've got to have solid identity, you need to be clear on the intent, and you absolutely have to protect the integrity of the record. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll dive into the problem itself. Then, we'll see how the whole idea of a notary is being completely reimagined. We'll walk through our real-world example, peek under the hood at the tech, and finally, wrap up with what this all means for you.
All right, Section 1, the problem with payments. Let's really dig into why these super important transactions, the ones that carry so much weight, so often feel, well, broken.
It really all boils down to trust.
You know, the real issue here is just friction. You've got records scattered all over the place, between courts, state agencies, and employers, and that just creates delays and disputes. The source material actually calls this the lemons problem. It's a classic economics idea, where one person in a deal knows way more than the other. That kind of information imbalance, it just kills trust and means someone has to manually and expensively check every single detail. For hundreds of years, societies had an answer for this, the notary. You can think of them as the original human trust protocol. Just a neutral, trusted person who steps in and says, yep, these facts are correct, making the whole agreement credible and, legally binding. So, Section 2, how do you take that foundational role and rebuild it for the digital age? Well, we're talking about a huge shift from paper seals and ink stamps to rock-solid cryptographic proof. Now check this out. The core principles are exactly the same, but the tools are night and day. A traditional notary relies on checking your ID in person and using a physical stamp. The digital notary, on the other hand, uses things like your fingerprint or face to confirm who you are, a smart contract to witness the event, a cryptographic hash that's like an unfakeable digital seal, and an immutable ledger, a permanent record that just can't be changed. So instead of a messy folder full of papers, this system creates digital evidence, these solid artifacts. You get a hash of the court order. Seriously, just think of it as a unique digital fingerprint of that document that cannot be faked. You get a digitally notarized affidavit of obligation that proves exactly what's owed. And you get a hash of the payment receipt, which is basically tamper-proof evidence that the money was paid.
Okay, I know this can all sound a little abstract, so let's make it concrete. We're going to do a quick walkthrough of a mock case to see how all these pieces actually fit together in the real world.
The whole workflow is this clear, verifiable 7-step journey. It starts with securely setting up the case and ends with everyone getting that real-time confirmation of payment. And the best part? Every single step is logged and totally secure. So the journey begins with intake and capture. This is where the digital identities of everyone involved are securely linked to the case. Then, the most important documents, like that certified court order, are uploaded, and their unique digital fingerprints, their hashes, are anchored right onto the blockchain. This creates a rock-solid starting point that nobody can argue with later. Next, the system automatically figures out what's owed and creates that digitally notarized affidavit of obligation. And listen, this is a really critical point. This system isn't trying to replace the official process. Not at all. It's designed to work with it, by default just mirroring the payments already flowing through the official State Disbursement Unit, or SDU. And here it is. This is the payoff. The employer sends the payment, it posts officially to the SDU, and boom, instantly, a verifiable confirmation is mirrored in the digital wallets of both parents. For the first time, everyone has a shared, real-time view of the truth. That meter showing what's owed drops immediately, and that provides clarity and some real peace of mind.
So what's the engine driving all this? Let's pop the hood for a second and look at the core technologies that make this secure automated workflow a reality. It's a whole stack of cutting-edge tech, really, each with a specific job. You've got modern standards like passkeys to prove you are who you say you are. You've got privacy tech that lets you share proof of your status without revealing all your personal data. Oracles act as secure bridges to real-world info, like payment confirmations, and smart contracts automate the whole process, all locked down with some seriously heavy-duty encryption.
The big takeaway here is that this isn't just an app. It's an entire ecosystem that's designed for security from the ground up. As the source material puts it, the goal is, and I quote, unwavering trust and complete transparency. That's the whole point.
Okay, let's bring all of this back to you. This kind of technology is becoming more and more common. So how can you get ready for it and really participate in this new trust economy? How do you go from being a passive user to an empowered participant? It really comes down to 3 simple but powerful steps. 1. Secure your digital wallet. That means turning on biometric unlock and setting up your recovery options. 2. Start using wallets that support verifiable credentials, those digital proofs of your status or identity. And 3, and this is a big mindset shift, get in the habit of sharing proofs, not your raw data, and learn to quickly check who issued a digital document and when they did it.
And this slide does a great job of spelling out the boundaries here. What the system does, it mirrors official records, automates tracking, and verifies identities and timestamps. What it absolutely does not do, it does not replace government agencies, it doesn't get in the middle of legal arguments, and it for sure does not offer legal or financial advice. It's just a neutral layer of trust, and that's a critical distinction.
So in the end, this isn't just about new technology. It's about meeting a timeless human need, trust in our agreements, with the tools of the 21st century. It's about rebuilding that essential bridge of trust for the internet age.
And if you want to dive deeper into this specific example, the source materials have a few next steps you can take, including watching a full demo and getting information on how this technology can integrate with existing state systems.
And that leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought. We've focused on one complex example here, but the implications are vast. If we can actually code trust and notarize facts on an immutable ledger, what other critical parts of our financial and legal lives can we rebuild to be more transparent, efficient, and secure?
All right, let's tackle a really big question for today's world. You've got these new digital assets, but how in the world do you use them for major real-world obligations? I mean, can something like Goldbacks actually clear a $50,000 child support debt? Well, the short answer is yes. But, and there's a huge but, only if you follow the rules and use the right payment rails. So let's break down exactly how you do it, the right way.
You know, this is a real modern-day problem, right? Your wealth might be tied up in things like gold-backed tokens or other digital assets. But these critical systems, like the one for child support, they only speak one language, good old-fashioned government currency. So what happens when your innovative assets just clash with these old-school, super important obligations?
And let's be really clear about the stakes here. We're not talking about a small amount. We're talking about $50,000. That is a life-changing sum of money, which is exactly why the system for handling it has to be so specific and so careful.
Yeah, and that number carries so much weight because of what it represents. This isn't just some commercial debt we're talking about. This is child support. The legal and, frankly, the human stakes are incredibly high. And the system that's built to manage it all is, by necessity, pretty rigid and bound by a ton of rules. That makes finding a solution both really urgent and, kind of complex.
So, how do we solve this puzzle? Well, before we can even think about a solution, we have to understand the rules of the game. When it comes to child support payments, there are these super strict compliance guardrails that you just cannot bend. Any solution that's going to work has to operate inside these rules, not try to find a clever way around them.
Okay, so to navigate this whole thing, you got to know the players on the field. First, you've got the obligor. That's the person who needs to pay. Then there's the obligee, the person who receives the support. Now, all the payments have to flow through the State Disbursement Unit, or SDU for short. Think of them as the official government channel. And then overseeing the integrity of the process is a civil law notary, and the whole thing is powered by a secure technology platform, JFE/notary chain.
Now, this brings us to probably the single most important rule in this entire process. You ready? All payments must, and I mean must, go through the State Disbursement Unit. You can't just send some tokens directly, you can't make a private side deal, none of that works. To be legally compliant, the SDU is the one and only path forward, period.
Okay, so now that we understand that core unbreakable rule, we can actually build our solution. What we have here is a roadmap, and we've broken it down into 3 clear, totally manageable phases that will take us all the way from a digital asset to a fully compliant, settled debt.
So here's the whole journey, just at a glance. It's really simple. Step 1, we verify absolutely everything. The debt, the assets, who's who. Step 2, we convert the goldbacks into US dollars and stick them in a secure escrow account. And finally, step 3, we disperse those dollars through the official compliant government channels. That's it. Verify, convert, disperse.
So let's dive into phase 1, verification. You got to think of this as building a rock-solid foundation. It all starts with really rigorous identity checks for everyone involved. The whole KYC/AML shebang. Then, we take the official court order and we create this unique digital fingerprint of it. That's called a cryptographic hash, and we lock it onto the blockchain so it can't be tampered with. We also get undeniable proof that the gold-backed assets actually exist. Every single fact is verified and made permanent.
Okay, once everything is verified and locked in, we can move on to the most critical step, the conversion. The obligator liquidates just enough of their goldbacks to produce exactly 50,000 US dollars. This is that magic moment where the asset gets transformed into a language the traditional system can actually understand and accept. The digital becomes analog, you could say, and it's ready for that final journey.
So where do those US dollars go? They don't just go anywhere. They go into something called an escrow account. Think of it like a neutral, ultra-secure safe that just holds the money for a bit. This is great because it protects both sides. The payer knows the funds are set aside for one purpose and one purpose only, and the recipient knows the money is real and it's ready to go. It's a huge step for building trust in the whole process.
And that brings us to the home stretch, phase 3, disbursement. The $50,000 are finally released from that secure escrow and sent directly into the official SDU payment system. And from there, the SDU processes it just like it would any standard payment. But here's the best part. The entire process, from start to finish, creates a complete, tamper-proof audit trail on the blockchain that you can look at anytime.
Now, you might be wondering, what's the secret sauce that makes this all legally sound? Well, there's a key person in this process, and that's the civil law notary. Their function is super specific and absolutely vital, so let's break down exactly what they do and what they don't do. And you have got to understand this distinction because it's critical. The notary here is a fact witness. They are not a financial advisor. They are not saying the goldbacks are worth $50,000. Nope. What they're doing is confirming facts. They're saying, I have verified these identities, I have created a digital fingerprint of this court order, and I have timestamped this proof of assets. They certify facts and data integrity, not value or price. And that very specific separation is what makes this process so legally sound.
So let's just quickly recap the notary's core functions. 1, they're the gatekeeper, making sure everyone is who they say they are. 2, they're the impartial fact witness, confirming that all the documents are authentic. 3, they stay strictly within their legal lane, never giving financial advice.
And finally, they create that unbreakable audit trail by anchoring every single verified fact to the blockchain. They're really the linchpin of trust for this entire system.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. So let's just boil it all down to the most important, actionable stuff you need to remember. This is the bottom line, the stuff you gotta get right to make this work.
All right, let's make this super simple. Here are the do's. First, always convert your assets to US dollars first. The system doesn't speak token. Second, always route that payment to the official SDU. And third, keep any existing wage withholding orders in place. Now for the don'ts. Never try to pay the SDU directly with a private token. It is not compliant. And do not use private side deals or funny money instruments like bills of exchange to try and get around the system. They will not be legally recognized. The message here is really simple. Work with the system, not against it.
So when you boil it all down, what's the big lesson here? It's that digital assets like goldbacks can absolutely be used to solve these complex financial problems. But the real innovation here isn't about breaking the rules or finding loopholes. It's about working intelligently within them. The technology to bridge this gap is here, but it has to be built on a foundation of strict, unshakable legal compliance.
And all this brings us to one final thought. Look, the nature of wealth in assets, it's changing faster than ever before. This whole child support case is just one example of where this new, modern world is bumping up against legacy systems. And it forces all of us to ask a really critical question. As your own assets continue to evolve, is your strategy for navigating the regulated world evolving right along with them?
Smash that like button and that subscribe button. You see me working hard for the money over here. Subscribe for more exclusive content.